Motherhood in Motion,
the podcast for mothers with ambition.
Welcome back, everyone, to Motherhood in Motion. I'm Anushka Kalyani, co-host here of the podcast and founder of Nannies and More. This is a podcast for mothers navigating the spaces in between roles, identities, seasons, and geographies, between who they are and who they're becoming. You've all heard about the research that Constanze and I have done on motherhood and ambition in the UAE, both last year, as well as the follow-up survey given the current context here at the moment. So we are very excited to dig into this research a little bit deeper with some very inspiring, incredible women, including Kalyani, who we have on the show today. Over to you, Constanze.
Hi, Kalyani. Lovely to have you. So my name is Constanze and I'm the co-host of this podcast, the founder of the platform Both And for Mothers with Ambition. And I have a 4-year-old son. And today we're actually talking about something we have not discussed yet in the last weeks, which is about money and what financial anxiety does to ambition. So we have invited Kalyani. She's the founder of She Invests, and she had us on the podcast a few months ago as well. And we've been wanting to have that conversation with her from our angle on motherhood and ambition. But before we go into anything else, hi, and who are you, Kalyani? Like, what brought you here? What brought you on this journey on She Invests? And who are you at your current season in your life?
Thank you very much. Always a pleasure to speak to you guys on camera or off camera. And I feel like you have really structured the conversation around the seasons with motherhood and with the both and philosophy as well. So thank you for doing the work that you do. At the moment, I am the founder and coach leading She Invests. It's a platform whereby I educate women on starting with investments primarily, but that done with the lens of managing their emotions, optimizing stress levels, the system regulation, and all the good things which comes with energetic work, as well as building foundations with the very technical side of finance. So I bring those two together, but at the very head of everything is investments, which is definitely a passion area of mine. I'm always so taken aback by how many women don't have any ground to stand on. They have no information on something so basic that allows us to succeed in the world. That's my mission. That's why I do what I do. And I've had a personal journey around that as well. Despite having a background in economics, I found that being comfortable with money, being anxiety-free around money, and then equipping myself with the right knowledge has very much been my journey up until now. And from the 99 things holding women back, I don't want money to be one of them.
That's great. Thank you for sharing that, your pain point, and how you are kind of solving this challenge that you've experienced yourself, utilizing your skills for other women. Just digging in a little bit deeper, culturally, as someone who's Indian as well, I know growing up, it was almost looked down upon to speak about money or finances, especially for women in my household, even though my parents are extremely progressive. How has that played a role in your journey? Very curious about that.
Actually, I come from a background where the women in my family are more financially savvy. They've really been at the base of managing the wealth, where the men were generating the wealth. They were handing it over almost to the women. There was that very clear demarcation that I got to see from very early on, and I haven't articulated this before. So new stuff is coming out right now. That was quite clear and interesting to observe. But despite the role that the women have played with the management, with the holding, I would like to say, of the wealth, with the consistent kind of effort that takes, they didn't have a lot of self-worth because the creation of wealth wasn't happening with them. They kind of saw that as not bringing anything to the table, which is such a big aspect of the work that I do. So that's very much been a part of my journey. That does your worth, is it only defined by the paycheck that you get, or is there more that you bring to the table? If not for a paycheck, what defines you, especially as an adult, in terms of your role in a family dynamic and everything that comes with it?
So it's basically the invisible labor of managing money.
Managing, holding, maximizing it, spending it consciously, being aware of when which investment is maturing, being aware of where the best results, where the best returns are coming from, defining the risk appetite for the family. If you get a lump sum, which is what my parents used to get quite often for the entire year, managing that over the period of a year in a way that there was always surplus, there was never a lack. So there's so much that goes into it.
So interesting, because I remember, if you look back in generations, my grandma was the same, not earning the money, but holding the money, investing the money, taking care of the money. And also at the time, the whole thing of the village was a lot more, right? Whereas today we kind of feel we have to do it all. The village, the money, like everything. And it kind of becomes a lot. Whereas this used to be to a certain extent the case, but we have just changed it, or society has changed it, which is quite interesting. And do you see women that come to you, do they have a certain background? What are they looking for when they come to you?
I feel like something seems to have changed, maybe from the last generation or very macro level from in the last 40 years, 50 years, I want to say, which is when we saw an active participation in the workforce by women. Keeping very general timelines here, what I find is that women who come from households where they are the second or the third generation going into the workforce, that dilemma of wanting to do it all is very active in them. Versus maybe, as you said, from your grandmother's time, there might be a certain sense of security where the expectation from them might be to look after the house, to look after the kids. And as a part of that, looking after the finances came as a part of that, because a lot of the spending would be done while you're looking after the kids and the household, you see. There was no pulling a mechanism or kind of that struggle in terms of generating wealth, proving my worth in the corporate, climbing the corporate ladder, because and all of those are good. I'm just saying that because it's so recent in our genealogy or our nervous system memory, we're still coming to terms with systems and support systems, the structure of how corporates are, how workplaces are not being equipped enough to support what we've been doing for generations. So there's very much that clear struggle or opposing force that comes up in most of my clients, and they come from well-educated backgrounds. A lot of them come from backgrounds where education wise, they've been through training in finance. They are very embarrassed to say that they work in a bank or their master's was in finance, which totally makes sense to me because my background was in economics with many modules on finance, subjects on corporate finance, but zero knowledge on actually making your money work. Only models, only academic knowledge, which is of no use in the real world.
It does, and it's very interesting.
Absolutely. And on that note, tell us a little bit more about She Invests, because I think that actually tells the picture a little bit about, the relationship between motherhood and money, motherhood and finance. If you could share a little bit more on that.
Let me start with my journey and why I do what I do. When I was 8 months pregnant with my son, who's now 9, crazy how time flies, but back then, I knew within that I wanted to leave my current job, which was quite toxic in the way the company was. I loved what I did, but the structure wasn't supportive. But my husband got made redundant. So here we were, double income, no kids unit. And then we went to having my son, and we'd hired help already. So we went from 2 people to 4 people and no stable income. And I feel like that year just felt so hard in so many ways of change coming in from being a new mom, first time mom. I was also a mother way before many of my friends or cousins were. So it just felt like I was kind of ahead of the curve, figuring things out by myself. And a whole layer of finding my identity came into play where I left my job and body had changed as well. And a big part of it was, what am I doing in my life? If I'm not earning money, then who is Kalyani? Because the child can be looked after by the nanny. So I took it upon myself to do as much as I can with my son, um, from a place of wanting to do it, but also from a place of proving my worth. And from this energy, I went into a business that wasn't fully aligned. And it was more so a case of proving my worth once again. And that journey taught me so much because I had to strip it down to what truly makes me me. B, I had to define the value of money and stop making it petty, stop belittling it. I mean, money is an important tool in our lives. We all need it. And from backgrounds, I can say generally, yourselves, me, listeners of the podcast are from privileged backgrounds. I think a lot of us sometimes tend to kind of belittle it or kind of look down upon having desires about money, saying, oh, she's doing this just for the money. Why not? Because money makes the world go round in a way that does not have to be negative. I mean, it opens up options, it opens up the choices. So there was a whole journey to let go of this shame. And I feel like when that happened, I was ready to let go of my previous business, which by chance was one of the lowest margin making products in the world, which is books. I wasn't making any money at all. So the struggle really exacerbated. And when I kind of, I would say, went over the hump of being able to realize my value within, which was stripped off the corporate career, stripped off the paycheck, stripped off even of the education that I prided myself upon having, and then kind of giving myself the permission to make money important, is when new options opened up, which were investing and trading for me. So I started trading. I was able to sell my previous business. And as I got success, I felt like so much of my confidence started coming back about finding myself in the charts, feeling at home with, analysis and numbers. And I thought that's something that most women should be able to do, at least at a basic level. We don't need you to be quantitative mathematicians, but at least at a basic level, have the confidence of being able to manage your money, be aware of it, know where it is, know what to do with it. Because otherwise, a lot of women only come to talk with their money when a calamity hits, when they're separating with their partner, or when they lose a parent or a partner. We don't need to wait for that calamity, then so much emotional turmoil. Why, and then learn a new skill amongst the turmoil, right? That's a very hard thing to do. Why not take proactive measures? Unfortunately, the education system does not have this as a part of the plan. It's very much up to us in taking the initiative. So if you are ready to take that initiative, She Invest meets you midway and gets you equipped to have the courage to start looking at your money and then know what to do with it in the simplest and most fun way. I think that's the tenet that I always keep going back to, because when I started educating myself as well, I was either met with very airy fairy woo woo kind of information, or burn sage and wish for the best and you'll be hit with $50,000 next day, which doesn't work. Or I was hit with very technical, super boring, hard to listen to lessons which lasted for 4 hours, on the other extreme. So I try and bring the two together and speak in a way that keeps people going, keeps people engaged. Um, yeah. So that's what She Invest does.
That's I we had a workshop with you a few months ago or a year ago or so, and
Yes.
that's what made me so interested in this topic, because what you come back to is your worth as a woman, your worth as a person, your worth as a mother, and just also to just be yourself. And you said it, right? You said it's all about realizing your value within. And what you do in your sessions is that you don't start at how much money do you have on the bank account and let's go with this, but you actually start with understanding yourself, your values, and based on that you do the next steps. And I find this intriguing because it's a very different, and to a certain extent maybe a very female approach of looking at it, which I personally, for me, makes a lot of sense and kind of makes me feel valued and understood. So if you bring new people into your program, what are the first steps that they're taking? How do you start a program with them?
The bank account doesn't come into the picture even until the end, to be honest, because that's the side effect of all the work that we do together. It's a bit of a given. If we have the luxury of working in person and working one-on-one, then I love to start with the values work, like you said, but that needs a little bit of personal attention. If I'm starting online cohorts, then typically starts with a few things that I like people to focus upon, which are mindset based. I like my clients to have the mentality of stacking probability in their favor, which means they're not going for perfection. They're not gunning for prediction, which happens a lot in the markets, which also means that they don't need to stay on top of news. In fact, if they stay away from news and just focus on the strategy that I teach, it's probably going to do them better. So that's one of the first things. And then the next thing is net profit mentality, which means that there will be losses. That's par for the course. The best traders only have about 50 to 60% win rate. And to approach investing or trading as a new business that they're setting up, which requires very little setup costs. Theoretically, you could even start with $1. How you can still be profitable by limiting your losses is what we go into a lot of detail around. So it starts with mindset, but not airy fairy mindset, tactical mindset. And I have to say, once you know the strategy, this is probably 80% of what all of my clients actually need to focus upon. They need to focus upon net profit. So if they lose in any trades, they make losses, to keep perfecting their technique, to know that net they can be still profitable, and to stay away from predictions, which means that if the next person is speaking about a certain stock next to them on a dinner table, to kind of have blinkers and have clarity on their own conviction instead of looking outwards. It's very much something that we keep coming back to in my coaching practice.
How long is each cohort?
I have recently launched a new format of something that I have been teaching since 4 years. And the format is called Super Simple Stocks. It lasts for 90 days. I'm taking small intakes so that I get to know the cohort really well. So we've had 10 people sign up for this cohort that's just gone live. In the 90 days, we've mapped micro wins for everyone to go through, very step by step, handheld. And the final destination that I see women at is, of course, being relaxed, happy, confident of being able to manage their money, but having an active investment portfolio, trading portfolio that suits their needs, that suits their goals, and managing that in 15 minutes a day is the promise.
Something that came out of our research last year, in addition to things like flexible work, childcare, it was actually financial confidence that 46% of our respondents who are mothers reported as being a priority for them after becoming mothers. So I think there is this renewed, interest and commitment in, being financially confident for themselves, for their families. And this first mini series of our podcast is actually focusing on the impact of this current context in the UAE. And something that has really come up in this follow-up survey is that 39% of our respondents talked about having financial anxiety as a result of this crisis.
Of course.
We've heard, one respondent in the qualitative section say, I don't have a plan B. I'm worried about what's going to happen. So how are you approaching this current climate with your cohort, with women who come to you for advice? What would you have to say about that?
Right. So before people start even considering investing, I always say that they should have three things in place. The first is to have a critical life cover. So critical illness / life insurance, which means that if hits the fan, pardon my language, they are looked after, their family is looked after. So that very basic safety net. The second would be to have an emergency fund that covers 3 to 6 months of their expenses. If circumstances go upside down overnight, you are not in a survival zone for at least 3 months, which gives you enough time to set something else up, to pivot and find something a lot of this is also based upon having the trust in yourself to always be moving, having the trust in yourself to find the next thing instead of being in the doubt mode of if I lose this, then that's it, full stop. Life is not a flat line. Circumstances keep changing. We very much need to be in tune with where we want to be to make the frequency happen. 3 to 6 months of emergency funds with the belief in yourselves to make it happen in those 3 to 6 months, even if unexpected circumstances were to hit. And lastly, to have paid any high interest debt. So, typically in the region, that tends to be credit card debt. Clear all of that first, even before you start accumulating the emergency fund, so that your financial responsibilities are clear while you have a bucket to kind of pull from. They all sound very basic, but you'll be very surprised as to how many women come into my practice not having these bases covered. Once you have this in place, you are already a few steps ahead. You can start looking at your risk profile, which means that you get some clarity on what your goals are and what your current season of life is, meaning how much time you have available. Can you be actively involved in the financial markets, or do you want to passively simply park your money and let that grow? But definitely, either way, educate yourself so that you can maximize results, maximize returns from your hard earned money. And I feel like most women, by the time they come to the second phase, are already feeling the confidence of being able to kind of take the situation head on. The survival mode really tones down in that case. And when that tones down, we all know that the reality reflects what is happening internally, especially with unprecedented circumstances like this. It's very much about regulating the survival mind, but doing that with actions. So you don't just want to be in the energetic space of knowing everything, but then you also put that into action.
It's very interesting because I feel myself thinking and doing a checklist and looking into my own head and finances and where am I? Did I do all of these things? And I mean, what you said, right? In the current times, it's first about basics and then about looking into anything additional. We have seen in the last weeks that it has been challenging for many people, women and female entrepreneurs, for all kind of entrepreneurs in Dubai. So there is a lot of doubt and fear and anxiety, not because of safety per se, but because of everything that impacts how we live here. We have also seen in our study that ambition doesn't stop during these times. It freezes to a certain extent. That's what the study says. It doesn't surrender. And I think that's also what we see when we talk to many women around. It's not that they want to stop anything. They need to recalibrate, maybe work on their finances and see what they do from there. For us in this podcast, it's very important that ambition is not about climbing the corporate ladder. It's not about the perfectly full bank account, but it is about a lot of little things that make us ambitious. We define it more as being very good at something. During this current time, ambition probably changes, and maybe even the topics of ambition change. Have you seen any changes in the women you work with on what their ambition looks like? And has it changed for you in the current times, knowing that you have also had to adjust to certain things?
Totally. I'll answer for myself first. What has changed for me is a very renewed desire for having clarity and taking that as my North Stars. Focus, clarity, and strategy based on the clarity. Being crystal clear on where I want to be and only focusing on that with blinkers, because on the practical side, a lot of what's happened is that life has become more chaotic. It was already chaotic. And now that everyone's at home, a lot of us were already at home. So we are having to go outside of home. So there's all of these like practical challenges that have come into play, and it feels like chaos all the time. So unless we have crystal clarity and a very clear North Star guiding us, it's very easy to get thinly spread. It's very easy to have a full day of firefighting, but feeling like we achieved nothing. That's a very compounding feeling of frustration. So, what's really helped me is to have that clarity and do what you need to get this clarity. If you need to hire a mentor, put your thoughts down on paper, have a chat with Claude or ChatGPT, even though I don't highly recommend it, even that would be okay. But the idea is to take that time to reflect, to prioritize it before you get busy with the actions. Trust that the actions will flow very easily, seamlessly, with lesser time required once the clarity is there. I can't emphasize that enough. And with my clients, what I'm seeing is a renewed desire or deeper desire to make the most of the volatility that they're seeing in the financial markets and feel more in control of their money and coming with a little more seriousness than they did previously when things were, let's say, quote unquote, going well, because you don't tend to think about money or health until you have to. So I feel like that's very much something I see. There's more commitment. There's also more confusion, also a little more mistrust in what's happening globally.
So, Kalyani, you have shared so much wisdom with us today. I think the biggest piece is that financial clarity, your goals, having your North Star, and working towards it. If you were to give one tip or one piece of advice to ambitious mothers who are currently trying to gain some financial clarity and control over their financial circumstance, what would you say?
A lot comes to mind. But if I was to structure it in 3 steps, this has been my personal guiding light in the last few weeks as well. It is clarity, strategy, and support. What I mean by that, first of all, spend time in reflecting and having clarity about where you want to be. For some people, they might want to have 50 designer bags. For some, they might want to go on a holiday every 6 weeks. For some, they might just want to have cash stacked in their broker accounts, in their bank accounts. And the ideal future looks very different for everyone. Please give yourself the permission to connect to that and let clarity flow from that. Okay, number one. Number two, based on that, you'll get some ideas, or please reach out for help in terms of what strategy you should be following. And that already should open a lot of things up, because many a time I find that people, because they don't have clarity on where they want to be, they often are just running on a hamster's wheel, thinking that this is what they need. There is so much that they need to achieve. Whereas for themselves, which is going back to the personal values work, for themselves, they probably don't need so much to survive or to even thrive, right? So that the strategy becomes crystal clear once the clarity has dropped. And after that, please take whatever support you need to rope in family, rope in friends, hire more help, hire mentors, and really lock into it. So, clarity, strategy, and support. And I think that kind of has been covering the bases for me. Um, I hope it'll resonate with everyone listening.
It resonates so much because every time I talk to you, the clarity piece is what I come out with, literally. It reminds me of you. I'm going to put a post-it next to me. Clarity, strategy, support.
Yes, please.
Kalyani, thanks so much. This was a wonderful conversation, and we couldn't be prouder of having you on our podcast. If people want to reach out to you, how to best do that?
My pleasure. Thank you once again for having me. The best place to find me, I think, is Instagram at SheInvest.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Kalyani. Really appreciate it. This is Anushka and Constanze signing off on Motherhood in Motion. Thank you. Motherhood in Motion,
The podcast for mothers with ambition.